The penthouse of Sterling Tower in Boston was a monument to everything I had built from nothing. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire eastern wall, offering a panoramic view of the Charles River and the sprawling pharmaceutical empire I had conquered through sheer force of will and a ruthless willingness to destroy anyone who stood in my path. The Italian marble floors gleamed under the soft glow of custom-designed chandeliers that had cost more than most people's homes. The walls were adorned with original biotech concept art and the first successful culture of the revolutionary cell line that had launched my company to global dominance. I, Julian Sterling, the self-made pharmaceutical billionaire who had risen from a trailer park in West Virginia to the pinnacle of the biotech industry, stood at the center of my empire, wearing a Tom Ford suit that cost more than a luxury car, and I felt nothing but contempt for the woman sitting in the corner of my office. My wife, Dr. Charlotte Vance, was reading a medical journal. She was always reading or running experiments or analyzing clinical trial data or doing something mundane and academic that reminded me of where she came from. She was a junior research scientist at Sterling Pharmaceuticals, the daughter of a high school biology teacher and a librarian, a woman who had grown up in a modest home in Maine. My venture capital firm had insisted on this marriage 28 years ago as a condition of their investment. They wanted someone intellectually grounded to balance my erratic nature. I had agreed, but I had resented it every single day. She was a constant reminder that I had sold part of my soul to build my company. Charlotte was beautiful in a quiet, unassuming way. Her chestnut hair was always pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her hazel eyes were warm and intelligent. But she wore no makeup, no designer labels, no expensive jewelry. She was content to exist in the background, to be a quiet, supportive wife who never made waves. I despised her for it. She had no ambition, no drive, no desire to be anything other than a researcher. She was the anchor that was holding me back, a reminder of my compromises. I had been seeing someone else for 18 years, Penelope Ashford, a glamorous biotech influencer and socialite with millions of followers, was everything Charlotte wasn't. She was sharp, ruthless, and exquisitely beautiful. She wore designer gowns like they were pajamas and had an audience that worshipped her every move. She was also the woman who had been feeding me intelligence about my rivals, helping me position myself as the king of biotech. Tonight, I was going to end it and I was going to divorce Charlotte and marry Penelope. I had already drafted the papers that I had already transferred our joint assets into my name. Charlotte would walk away with nothing but the clothes on her back. IT was the least she deserved for being such a pathetic excuse for a wife. I walked toward her, my footsteps echoing against the marble floor. Charlotte looked up from her journal, her expression calm, serene, infuriating. "Julian, dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. I made your favorite, filet mignon with truffle butter." "I'm not hungry," I said coldly. "Put the journal down. We need to talk." She closed the journal obediently, as she always did. I stood over her, looking down with all the contempt I could muster. "Charlotte, this marriage has been a mistake," I said. "I never wanted to marry you to hear a burden, a liability, a constant reminder of my biggest failure. I've met someone else. Someone who actually belongs in my world. I'm filing for divorce. You have 72 hours to pack your things and leave. I've already had the lawyers prepare the papers. Sign them, and you can go quietly." Charlotte stared at me. Her expression was unreadable. No tears, no shock, just a strange, unsettling calm. "Julian," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Do you know why the venture capital firm insisted on me? Do you know why I was chosen for this marriage?" "Because you are cheap and malleable," I said dismissively. "You were a way to make the investors feel like I was grounded. You were nothing more than a prop." Charlotte nodded slowly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a simple leather-bound folder, something I had never seen before. She placed it on the coffee table in front of her. "Julian," she said, "I'm not just a junior research scientist, and my mother was Dr. Evelyn Hart, the Nobel Prize-winning biochemist who developed the foundational cell line technology that powers every single drug Sterling Pharmaceuticals has released in the past decade. The technology that has generated 99% of your revenue. The technology that is worth over $400 billion that I inherited her research, her cell lines, her patents, her life's work. I hold the exclusive rights to the core technology that your entire company is built on. My blood turned to ice. I stared at her, my mind reeling. The cell line technology was the foundation of Sterling Pharmaceuticals. It was the reason we had beaten every competitor, the reason I had become the dominant force in the biotech industry, if it belonged to her. That's impossible, I said. I have the paperwork. I bought the patents from the estate. I have the signatures. I have. You bought a shell, Charlotte said calmly. My mother knew the risks of selling her life's work to a corporation. She structured the patents so that they could only be transferred with my explicit written consent. You never got my consent. You never even asked. You assumed I was just a simple researcher who didn't understand business. You are wrong. She stood up. Her posture was different now, confident, commanding. The woman I had dismissed as a simple scientist suddenly seemed like the genius she should have been. I have the divorce papers here, she said, pulling a thick folder from her bag. I've already had my lawyers draft them. You will receive no settlement. You will receive no alimony. You will vacate this penthouse by midnight tonight, and you will never contact me again. If you try to fight me, I will revoke your license to use my mother's cell line technology. Without it, your company is worth exactly zero. The investors will abandon you. The board will fire you. You'll be left with nothing but lawsuits, criminal investigations, and bankruptcy. I grabbed the papers. My hands were trembling. Did I scan them, searching for a loophole, a mistake, anything? But the documents were ironclad. They were written by the best intellectual property lawyers in the country. Charlotte, please, I said, my voice cracking. This is insane that I didn't know who your mother was, that I made a mistake. I was a fool. Please, give me another chance, I'll make it up to you. I'll be a better husband, She cut me off with a dismissive wave. You had 28 years to be a better husband, Julian, 28 years to see me, to appreciate me, to love me. You chose to ignore me. You chose to belittle me. You chose to treat me like a servant. And now you get to live with the consequences of those choices. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your love. I don't need anything from you. That I'm free and you are destroyed. She walked to the door. She didn't look back. You have until midnight, Julian. And if you're not gone by then, my lawyers will have you escorted out in handcuffs. The door closed behind her. I stood in the penthouse that I had built, feeling the walls closing in around me. I had lost everything. My wife, my empire, my future. All of it gone in an instant. The weeks that followed were a descent into hell. The press had a field day. Pharmaceutical billionaire loses everything. Julian Sterling's humiliation. Charlotte Hart reveals secret inheritance. My reputation was shredded. My friends abandoned me. Penelope Ashford, my beloved mistress, the woman I had destroyed my marriage for, dropped me the moment she realized I had no money. She was already engaged to a rival biotech CEO, that I was left with nothing. The investors panicked. The board called an emergency meeting. Without the cell line technology, my company was a shell. The valuation plummeted from $400 billion to zero in a matter of weeks. The lawsuits started piling up, from shareholders, from business partners, from everyone I had ever wronged. The FDA launched an investigation. The FTC launched an investigation. The DOJ launched an investigation. I spent my life savings on legal fees, but it wasn't enough that I declared bankruptcy. I lost everything. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a rundown part of Dorchester. I couldn't afford my old lifestyle, couldn't even afford a car. I started looking for work, but no one would hire me. My reputation was destroyed, that I was a pariah, a laughingstock. Months passed. I was forced to take a job as a janitor at Sterling Pharmaceuticals' new headquarters, the very company I had founded, now owned by my ex-wife. I scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, emptied trash cans. I looked in the mirror every morning and saw a hollow shell of a man, a shadow of my former self. But the worst part was seeing Charlotte. She was everywhere, on magazine covers, on television, on billboards. She had taken over my company and transformed it into a global powerhouse. She had started a foundation, a scholarship program, a global health initiative. She was using her fortune to cure diseases and save lives. She had won a Nobel Prize of her own, a testament to her genius. She was happy, radiant, thriving. She had everything I had thrown away. One night, I was mopping the floor of the executive conference room when I saw her reflection in the glass wall. She was standing in the doorway, watching me. Her expression was unreadable. "Julian," she said, "I heard you were working here. I wanted to see it for myself." I dropped the mop. I fell to my knees. The tears started streaming down my face. "Charlotte," I sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was a fool. I was arrogant. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, I'm begging you. Give me another chance. I'll do anything. I'll work for free. I'll be a janitor for the rest of my life. Just please, let me be near you. Let me try to make it right." She looked down at me. Her expression was cold, distant. But for just a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Pain? Regret? It didn't matter. She shook her head. "Julian," she said, "you had 28 years to make it right. 28 years to see me, to appreciate me, to love me. You chose cruelty. You chose arrogance. You chose to treat me like I was nothing, and now you're nothing. You don't get to come back and beg for crumbs. You don't get to use my success as a way to assuage your guilt. You made your bed. Now lie in it." She turned to leave. I crawled after her, grabbing at her ankles. "Please, Charlotte, please. I'll do anything. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I love you. I always loved you." I was just too stupid to realize it. She stopped. She looked down at me one last time. Her eyes were filled with a cold, final emptiness. "You never loved me, Julian," she said. "You loved what I could do for you. You loved my talent, my intelligence, my connections, but you never saw me, not once. Not in 28 years. And you never will. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your love. I have everything I need. I have myself. I have my work, but I have my family. And you have nothing but regret. Goodbye, Julian." She walked away. I stayed on the floor, sobbing, as her footsteps echoed down the hallway. I had lost everything. MY company, MY money, MY reputation, MY dignity. And the only woman who had ever truly loved me. The years passed. I remained a janitor, stuck in a dead-end life. I never recovered. I never remarried. I spent my nights replaying every moment of my marriage, every cruel word, every dismissive glance. I thought about Charlotte's smile, her kindness, her unwavering loyalty, and I realized that I had been the villain all along, that I had been given the greatest gift in the world, and I had thrown it away. One day, I was cleaning a research lab when I saw a familiar face on the television mounted in the corner. It was Charlotte being interviewed about her latest breakthrough, a revolutionary new drug that was curing previously untreatable cancers. She was using my former company to save millions of lives. She was happy. She had found her purpose. And I was scrubbing a chemical spill off the floor. I sank to my knees, sobbing. The mop clattered to the ground. I felt the weight of my mistakes crushing me. I had been such a fool, such an arrogant, entitled fool, and there was no going back. I looked up at the screen, at Charlotte's face, and I whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But she couldn't hear me, and even if she could, it wouldn't have mattered, because I had destroyed everything we could have had. I had destroyed myself. One evening, I was sitting on a bench outside the headquarters, eating a cheap sandwich, when I saw her walking past. She was with her family, her husband, her children, her colleagues. She was laughing at something her daughter had said. She was radiant, happy, free. She didn't notice me. She walked right past, her laughter echoing in the evening air. I wanted to call out to her. I wanted to beg one more time, but I couldn't. I had no right. I had given up that right when I threw her away. I watched her walk away, her silhouette disappearing into the twilight. I sat on the bench, alone, the tears streaming down my face. I had lost everything: MY company, MY money, MY reputation, MY dignity. And the only woman who had ever truly loved me. I closed my eyes. The cold was settling into my bones. I felt the darkness closing in, a permanent chill that would never leave. I was dying. I could feel it. And in that final moment, I realized that the greatest tragedy wasn't losing my empire, that IT wasn't losing my money, that IT wasn't even losing my reputation. The greatest tragedy was losing the one person who had ever truly seen me and not realizing it until it was far too late. I whispered her name, Charlotte. But the only answer was the wind.